Good afternoon, folks. My name is Lucas Ballahood. I'm a realtor with Coldwell Banker RMR and the Ballahood Group. Now, today we've got a little bit of a seasonal recording for you with our good friend Pedro Jorgana with Inspec Homes. And Pedro's here today just to chat with us a little bit about, of course, the value of the home inspection and as well as where we are in the year. We're now into October, and fall home maintenance is going to be an important topic that we touch on this month as we get ready for what will likely be another long, cold winter here in Southern Ontario. So, Pedro, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Lucas. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit about your background and your credentials here with Inspec and sort of what you're doing now, just so people get an
Well,
idea of who we're dealing with here today.
yeah. So I'm been doing home inspections for the last 13 years. I actually before used to be with another company, and after a while and everything, we decided to actually. I did it with two of my colleagues, and we decided to put our own company and everything. The old franchise actually is not in Ontario anymore. Didn't work for them, so they moved back out east. So we decided to put our own company and everything. And I'm being with Spec Homes since 2000. Well, when I opened the company myself, it's 2017. We've been in Spec Homes since then. Um, I have a couple certifications. Of course, you have to go through the process of the education and everything over the years, right?
Mhm.
Plus the regular education at the beginning. And after that, I have a certification. I'm a certified master inspector since 2015. I take a course as well for wet inspections, wood energy technology transfer. So
Mhm.
that's more for fireplaces. A lot of people these days they still have fireplaces, chimneys, wood stoves, fire inserts, and sometimes with a sale of a house, a lot of the homes that they still have the fireplaces they will require by the insurance to get it inspect before use. And I have a certification as well for mold testing, right? I don't do the remediation for the sake of argument, but I do the mold testing and everything
Mhm.
if is noted in the house at any given time, right? There's a lot of people with allergies and everything, and sometimes I have clients after the fact that they find issues in homes. Even so, me doing the inspection or people that they've been living in a house for the last 10 years, 15 years, right? So I do with that as well.
Mhm. Now, it's important you say that all these education that you've obtained over the years, and that you've continued that you're a certified master inspector, because this is a profession where there can be a lot of criticism involved just related to the qualifications of the individuals making these determinations that can sometimes make or break a home purchase or a transaction, right? So it's really valuable that you have those, and it is a regulated profession now, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
It is regulated up to a certain point and everything. Ontario, we've been fighting for the longest time to actually get licensing on it and everything. We're regulated through the association, right? Ontario ACHI, there's Internachi, there's CAPCHI, there's OACHI. There's four major associations and everything. I belong actually to three of them.
Mhm.
Um, because at this point we don't have any licensing in place yet. We're regulated, but we don't have a licensing, right? So anybody that want to be a home inspector, I mean, of course, after they take the courses, they could be a home inspector, right?
Mhm.
Because there's nothing that actually is stopping them to do so. So we're still going through the process and everything, and that's one of the disadvantages that we have, like you mentioned right now, right? Um, a lot of the times we have the bad actors just trying to be a home inspector without the proper education, and later on we get to those problems where um, deals doesn't go through or people is just telling the wrong thing to the wrong person about the house, right? So and that's one of the biggest problems that we have right now. We've been fighting since 2000 and oh my god, 2010 is being an ongoing battle and everything. And of course there's always something else, something else, something else. We were close to actually getting to licensing and everything in 2017, but we have the big bubble in 2017 with the housing market, so everything went back and stopped. And after that 2018 comes back, 2019 we were already in the process. They was going to do it, and Thank you very much. We get COVID. So as we know, COVID right now, it just stopped everything completely, right? So um, we still looking to get licensing and everything. If you go to Alberta, if you go to Saskatchewan, New Brunswick, they already have that licensing in place and everything, and we're following the same model that they have, and we're hoping that we can get that licensing approved soon enough over here in Ontario, just to make sure that anybody that is doing a home inspection is qualified and have the right education and certification for it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, where they've changed the licensing rules for realtors in Ontario within the last couple of years as well, just to try and improve that credibility and quality of professional that is helping consumers when they're making these important decisions, for sure. Speaking of the pandemic as well, I mean, it seemed like conditional agreement of purchase and sale, was a rarity to see, but we're seeing more of those conditions, for inspections and financing now, re-entering the market again, which is definitely a positive for home buyers. So, from your perspective, what added value does that bring to the consumer when they're getting that home inspection completed on their purchase?
Well, the reality of things is there's a misconception over there, and good thing that you pointed at it right now, right? Home inspections are not to make or break a deal. The whole idea of the home inspection, I have a lot of clients that later on they ask me like, "Well, do you pass the house?" Well, home inspection is not pass or fail, right? It's just a better understanding what's the condition of the house and what needs to be fixed when it needs to be fixed, right? And doing an educated decisioning when you have to spend or how much money you will have to spend in case that you have to do any repairs or renovations in a home, right? Like I always said to all my clients, the sky is the limit, right? For education purposes, it's always a good idea to actually, before buy a house, to do a home inspection. So now you know the condition, simple things and simple examples like that. A lot of the times is more about maintenance, right? Yes, there is one or two homes that actually could have structural issues. And yes, that's a different story, right? But most of the time, there's a lot of small things that we find, any home inspector will find. Caulking in the showers, like your eavesdrops that are not clean, your downspouts that are not further away from the house, and that could create water damage in any house over time and everything. And that's the whole point of the inspection, trying to just help the clients to maintain the house properly and avoid those like big ticket well, those small things that you could do right now becoming a big ticket item in the future,
Hmm.
right? I always recommend to do a home inspection and everything. I know the market is changing, and even as today, like you mentioned, right now the market is trying to come back a little bit and everything, but there's still happening multiple offers in some case scenarios and everything, or a lot of people are still waiving the condition of a home inspection. They are like, oh, why should I do a home inspection? What's the point, right? So and I have people later on calling me, oh, by the way, I didn't do a home inspection, but now I have water. Now I find that my attic is not, or I have mold in the attic. I have a water leak in the basement. My furnace is not working. Well, all those things could cost and add up into your bills at the end of the day, right? So it's definitely a good idea to do the inspection just for the educating side purpose, right? Like I mentioned to you, it's not to make or break a deal. It's for you to, for any client to understand what are they buying. It's like if you're gonna buy a new car or a car, you're not gonna just go and buy the first car that you see, right? You're gonna do some diligence and everything. You're gonna go check the motor and things like that. Okay, your wheels, how many kilometers you have in the car, is everything working, right? So a lot of the people spend a lot of money just trying to buy a car but never into a house, right? Because they think, oh, well, it's standing there, so it should be okay. Well, it doesn't it doesn't work that way sometimes,
No,
right?
and you're right.
So
You raise a very good point about maybe the misconception there between what a home inspection is really doing. Like, a lot of people think about a new build home where it's got to pass all these different levels of inspection, whether it's the foundation or the plumbing or the electrical. It's got to pass these inspections. So people think home inspector, you're going to pass and fail the certain part or component that's being inspected. But in your case, the home's already completed. It's a resale home, so you're essentially going in to try and identify potential problems, the ages of certain things, how much lifespan they have left. Like a roof, for example, that might be depending on the material, it's got a certain lifespan, and you're trying to identify, or you can help us identify how long that particular building component might have left in its durability, right?
And you know what? You raise a good point. Like right now that you mention it as well. A lot of people they have the misconception as well. Okay, it's a new home, so I shouldn't have any problem in a new home. And yes, you're right. You're gonna have a licensed electrician that will certify that electrical panel, a plumber, and everybody will certify whatever it needs to be certified. But there's always small things that they are overlooking everything. The city has so much that they can do in a day. You have one inspector trying to do, I don't know, for the sake of argument, 1,000 homes. So sometimes they don't have the time, and those are the small things that they are overlooking everything. The amount of insulation. I have a lot of houses in some areas, and I've been going back over there because there was an issue with the insulation. They put 3 inches less of insulation in new homes, right? So there's certain codes and requirements that you need to have right now that they are new homes, right? And I mean, 3 inches of insulation maybe doesn't sound that much, but in energy efficient standpoint, it does, right? And a lot of people is like, oh, well, it's a new house, it should be perfect. There's no perfect house. That's never gonna exist. No matter what it is, there's always gonna be something that needs attention, right? And that's the whole point. And that's a misconception as well. A lot of people they think, oh, I bought a new home, I shouldn't have an inspection. And you don't have idea how many times I've been going to new homes after a year and everything. Oh, I have my Tarion. I find these 50 issues. Can you tell me if I'm just right or if you find something else? Right. And there's houses that they are beautifully, they are perfect and everything. There's amazing contractors as well. And outside, right? But there's sometimes that there's going to be issues, right? So, and when you're buying a new house, you want to make sure that those issues are being solved properly since the beginning.
Well, and not all builders are created equal, right? I've had a number of discussions and feedback even from, just in the industry about homes that have been built during the pandemic and the supply chain shortages that we ran into during that time for on the builder side of things, and their potential there in some of these new homes built in the last 18 months that have numerous, let's say, issues or potential issues because the quality of material wasn't used, because it wasn't available in some cases. So even though you're getting a new build home, the structure may not be built the best because of other factors outside of their control, and they were just left to solve the problem on their own, and they maybe had to cut a corner here or there in order to get that property completed and sold. So bringing you an inspector like you in, even for that newer build, can help you identify an issue that you can address before it becomes a big problem. And I mean, new homes do typically, they're going to have the Terrain warranties involved and all those kinds of things. But there's always things that we can't see behind the drywall or what have you. Like you said, you've got that thermal gun that's testing the energy efficiency or the thickness of the insulation in the attic, and you're going to be able to identify problems that upon just in-person viewing without the expertise and technology you have available to you that they wouldn't have otherwise seen.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So to transition a bit here and pivot to the time of year we're at, starting to get cold. We're hovering in the single digits here today. So what are some of the more common problems that you'll run into or that you'll see, when you're on when you're out and about, that could have probably been avoided if this particular issue had been mitigated against while the weather was still durable, or what's the word I'm thinking of here? It was still, you could still handle being outside doing that maintenance while it was the weather was still decent.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? Yeah, I notice a lot right now. I mean, we know that fall is here and everything. We can see it in the weather. You can feel it now,
Mhm.
right? And you can see how everything is changing. It's a beautiful time of the season. It looks amazing. Leaves falling on the floor, and everybody's happy about it, right? As a home inspector, I'm always concerned because I see it quite often and everything. And this is one of the biggest things that I have with homeowners. Nobody has a ladder that can go 2 story high or even 1 story high. And what happened, a lot of the times you see the eavesdrops and you're like, oh yeah, they look great. Yeah, but nobody see in the inside. And a lot of the times that's the biggest problem that you have. All that small piece of eavesdrop will hold leaves. Some of the asphalt over time, the shingles will deteriorate, and that granular, right? It just goes into the eavesdrops, and that's so heavy that I will actually hold the water. So one of the biggest things right now for any homeowner, reality of things will be checking those eavesdrops, right? Make sure that you can clean it, remove all the leaves and everything before actually start getting too cold and freeze. Once it freezes and everything, there's no way that you can remove all that debris from the eavesdrops and everything, and you will have to wait another year. And that's why sometimes, I don't know if you see it in some homes, I'm pretty sure that you do, when you start seeing those beautiful pieces of ice just on the eavesdrops, and it's like, oh yeah, see, there's a little bit of ice. The problem is that's the ice creating because of the accumulation of the water and the debris on the other side. The same way that goes outside could go inside of the house, and one day you could be like, oh, I have a stain over here, right? So definitely right now, the biggest thing that any homeowner should be looking into it is just removing any debris around the house, checking the eavesdrops, checking your downspouts. Make sure that the downspouts and those extensions are further away from the house. Once you start getting all that ice and everything, definitely you're going to have more water than normal. So you want to make sure that all those small things are set. So when we have all that melting and everything before or after the winter, does not allow any water going in. I see a lot of the time window wells, people not covering, and you have leaves and plastic and whatever nonsense, even plants growing over there. All that should be removed to ensure that actually the water drains properly. You just need a little bit of water, one single crack to allow water into the house, right? So definitely the exterior, that's the main concern right now. Looking into your soffits, make sure if you have siding that there's no damage on the siding, right? Winter comes, any water, there's expansion and contraction, and it could actually damage your siding. And maybe one piece that you have right now could become a three pieces later, or entire like area that now has an issue with the siding, right? Water penetrating. So, and again, those small spaces have to be sealed as well, because now you could have a pest problem as well, right? Always, 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 we have to be looking to avoid any mice, um, rodents, chipmunks, anything that could go inside of the house, right? So definitely walking around the house right now and doing those small uh, details could make a big difference in the future.
A bit of a side note and a personal story. My parents have a cottage, and it's relatively new in terms of its age, built relatively recently. And this past summer, they had a bit of a. This was more fun for my younger brother. Had a bit of a squirrel problem. I don't know if Joe called you about that and maybe explain some of the situation, but somehow a squirrel got into the house over the course of the previous winter and had been sort of creating a nest somewhere. And suddenly there's, these nuts and everything showing up at the cottage. You couldn't figure out it was buried in the furniture, couldn't find it. Well, there was a bit of a Clark Griswold moment where they're chasing the squirrel around the house, trying to catch it in the middle of the night. And bit of a funny story for the next day when the whole family heard about it. But that's the kind of thing we're talking about, right? It doesn't take much of a space for these animals to get in there and infiltrate the property if it's if certain things aren't maintained and gaps closed off and all that kind of stuff. So makes can make for quite a headache.
Yeah, and right now that you mention it, yeah, I mean, it's not a funny, well, it's a funny story, right? When you hear it, it's not funny when it happened to you. But I have a client that actually one day called me, and I mean, he lives all the way in Peterborough and everything. I go all over the place. But he lives in Peterborough and everything, and he called me and they're like, okay, guess what? I have a bat in my house. What do you mean you have a bat in your house? Well, yeah, the small bats, they're fruit bats if you want to see it that way. But of course, once it start getting colder, they start looking for a place to go in, and they just need like a mice, a size of a dime to be able to get in the house. So we actually find the area where they were coming in and everything. But the problem now was that you have not one, there was a lot of them living inside, just nesting, getting ready for the winter, right? So now trying to take all that out is not easy, right?
Mhm.
So of course, and that's why we always said, right? I mean, any small holes that you have in the house, make sure that are sealed properly. I mean, this guy was like he said, I'm sleeping with a tennis racket in my hand all the time because I can hear them just going straight in my face, right? So it was scary for him. It was funny for me when he mentioned it. Of course, we find the issue, we solve it, but it's still right. It's not fun when you have to live through that.
Well, and then with animals getting in, you could have mold issues that come with that, and obviously hygienic problems with animals. You don't know what kind of diseases and things they're carrying, and that gets in your house. You don't want to deal with that stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
So
definitely.
I have flashbacks of the great outdoors and John Candy and swinging around a tennis racket just as you described there with the lampshade on his head. Gosh, what a nightmare that would be. But that's kind of what happened with our family there with the squirrels. So to just sort of wrap things up here on a bit of a micro level for homeowners, certainly there's situations like you say where you got to get up to your second story of your house and you need a professional like you to come in and help clean the gutters because being 30 feet in the air is not something most people are comfortable with, nor necessarily should they be. That's dangerous. But what are maybe five things and you've touched on this already, so feel free to repeat yourself. But what are maybe five things that a homeowner can do themselves to get their house ready for the winter?
Definitely one of the things, if you have window wells around the house, definitely clean those window wells. Make sure that they are clean before the winter. Remove any debris uh, around the corners of the house and everything. Something that we have most of the time when you see the downspouts and everything, and it's silly, but by code and everything, as long as you have like 4 inches from the wall, that's perfectly fine. I always recommend to do extensions in all the downspouts and everything, right? To ensure that the water actually goes away from the house, not against the house. And those are small fixes that any homeowner can do. 2 screws and just screw the plastic, or even you can buy the aluminum ones if you want to, and everything connected to your downspouts and ensure the water runs away from the house, right? So any small gaps that you see around the house and everything, definitely something that I recommend the clients to get to it as soon as possible and everything, just to avoid any pests going into the house, right? So, cause like we mentioned, I mean, feces and bacteria and whatever nonsense could be a big issue and everything. The other thing that you want to review as well and everything, and a lot of people they overlook at these, the windows a lot of times people they don't seem to care too much about the caulking around it. So you have your window, you have your exterior, and in between there's a small, like the caulking that actually seals the window to avoid any cold air, water, or drafts inside of the house. And I see it a lot of times that the caulking is actually already broken. There's gaps on it, right? So and you just need one small space, and water will find a way to get in the house. And even drafts. And sometimes you could say, "Oh, my heat bill is just go too high." Well, let's gonna start looking into the outside of the house and look for all those small voids that actually can be sealed. And yes, you spend a little bit of money at the beginning, but it could save you a long um, during the years, right? So the exterior, I think, is one of the most important parts of the house and everything, and everybody, including myself, we overlook at it, right? Um, Attic is hard. I'm going to ask clients to go in the attic and review it, but it's a good idea always. If you didn't have an inspection in the last 5 years and you did before, just go back to whatever inspection you have at that time and see how much insulation they said that there's in the attic, right? Maybe they said you have 8 inches. We have to understand that the insulation, nothing is forever, and insulation will shrink. So if you have 8 5 years ago, maybe now you have 5 or 4. So that's not enough insulation, and all that heat is going to escape. And again, your bills are going to go higher, and you could create frost, you can create mold, water leakage over time, right? So um, I think the attic is as well really important, and nobody seems to care about it, or everybody's afraid of it. And yes, I understand. Yeah, that's not pretty to go into an attic, but chances are that there's absolutely nothing living over there. You're gonna be okay if you just open the hatch, take a look at it, and just take a measuring tape, measure how much insulation just at the edge, and that's all you need to do. Or just take a peek, nothing else, right? Don't go crazy on it and everything. You can call a professional to review that, and definitely we will love to go back to your house and tell you how much insulation you have in case that you need more. We will let you know, right? So it's always a good idea to do a maintenance review of your house for fall.
No, absolutely. And I mean, talking about the inflation, the rise of heating costs, and I mean, look at the cost of fuel, all these kind of things. So this preventative maintenance can not only help for immediately, but in the long term, saving on those energy bills for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we're looking over here. So.
Mhm. Now, in our last couple of minutes here, Pedro, I just wanted to give you the opportunity here to plug, your business, and I know you've got a side hustle as well. So, I just want to give you an opportunity to share some information about that. And where can people get a hold of you?
Well, we have a web page and everything. If you can Google Inspect Homes, right? Now, one of the things that I will say, Inspect Homes without the T. A lot of people, they put the inspect with the T and they're like, oh, I cannot find you. I never see you. Well, yeah, we did a little bit of a trick over there and we actually avoid the T on it. Don't ask me why, but that's the way it is. So you can Google my name, Pedro Gergana, and I will be there. Like that's another way to find us and everything, right? So our webpage is www.inspecthomes.com. Pretty simple one, right? And like I said, there's 6 of us right now and everything. The company's been growing slowly but surely, right? We don't want to overshoot ourselves as well either. We're having some people on board with us as well, so we're taking the time to train every single one of them. Right now, of course, because of the market the way it is not a possibility,
Mhm.
right? And right now with the market as well and everything, something that I'm being doing recently because the market shift and everything. I have a lot of clients from my past clients that they've been trying to do some work in the house, some small cleaning, small renovations, so drywall, doing some caulking around the washrooms, and they cannot find a contractor. The contractors are busy or they don't have the time and the material to do so. So I'm being doing as well some handyman work, just to ensure that my clients are safe as well and everything, right? So doing a little bit of a caulking in the washroom that a lot of people we tend to forget, right? But you have to do it every, I don't know, 3 to 5 years, right? And a lot of times the caulking in the shower, you're using it every day. So if there's gaps, there's going to be leaks, right? So I've been trying to help my clients and everything as well, doing that and everything. And seems to be working as well and everything, right? So every little bit helps over here when it comes to homes and everything. And I see most of the clients, I have past clients that they call me, I love your services before and everything. So if you can tell me the name of a contractor and I give the names and it's like, yeah, he's busy. No, he cannot do it. Have a small things. And nobody want to go and spend an hour of the time, right? So everything is money these days. That's the saddest part and everything. Or becomes to the same point, like with you and me, we talked about it before. There's no material. I wish I could do all these, but reality is that we can just do this much because there's nothing else,
Mhm.
right? So it's been quite challenging and everything for home inspections. For I believe any industry right now, it's quite challenging, no matter which industry you are on, right? But when it comes to homes and everything, that's the biggest investment that we're ever gonna do. So definitely, if you're planning to buy a house, do yourself a favor and just call any inspector. Doesn't have to be me, it could be any home inspector. But at the end of the day, it's gonna be money worthwhile for anybody to understand what's the condition of the house, right? Um, again, we spend so much in searching for everything else. Even going in Amazon, oh, I want to buy whatever a pin, and you go in Amazon, Google, and da 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 da, Apple, and you spend hours looking for that pin, right? And when it comes to a house, it's like, oh, I don't want to spend another $500 here. I don't want to spend $300 here. No, the house is okay. No, it's not okay. It's always a good idea to do that, right? So, um, any repairs that any home inspector asks you or tell you that needs to be done, don't just toss it around. Just take the time and really do it and everything. And you're gonna take yourself over the years that you did that and everything, and you're avoiding. You spend $100 today, tomorrow you're not spending 500 for the sake of argument because we overlook at something, right? So,
Mhm.
and I believe the home inspections is something that I will highly recommend to do it on everything. I know that sometimes it's not that easy, Even you guys know right now, like multiple offers or not enough houses in the market, and you have sometimes to get what's available, right? So it is hard for everybody. I understand that, but um, just just being a little bit more conscious of what the steps needs to be done, and just sometimes if a real estate agent told you that you need a home inspection, just listen to them because there's a reason why they are saying that, right? It's not just like, oh yeah, let's just gonna do something just for the fun of it,
Mhm.
right?
Well, no one ever moves for fun. I don't know if you've had to move once or twice. I'm sure you have. It's never a process that we do, for the enjoyment of it. Certainly, we enjoy helping people with that part of the process, but it's not something people usually do recreationally. So, it's something you have to take seriously and take the proper precautions. So, Pedro, I really appreciate your time today. We're up against it here in terms of time, but thank you so much for joining me. We'll have your contact information and your website here at the end of the video so anyone can look you up and make sure they know how to spell inspect homes properly. Again, thank you so much for your time and I hope you have a great rest of your week and start to the end of the year here.
You as well, Lucas. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Well, folks, have yourselves a wonderful rest of your day. We'll be with you again soon. Bye for now.